Estate.
Clay Blazer,
Yes.
Angela Husky Grooms, Rich Lloyd,
Yes.
Crystal Ottinger,
Yes.
Norman Smith.
All right, that was approved. Next on the agenda is subrecipient grant policy.
All right, you all should have gotten in an email today, a subrecipient grant policy. I know it's kind of long, but basically what this is, as the mayor mentioned in a previous CLB meeting, we did get awarded a grant to work with Judge Sloan and opioids, and it was almost 900,000. Now we have people working with the county to help administer this grant, and they're essentially subrecipients. And the county does not currently have a subrecipient grant policy. We need one in place just to kind of keep them as accountable as we are for funds, not just them, but any grant we have in the future where we have this kind of situation.
If you're unfamiliar with the grant that we're working on, it's a justice system grant, but it's going to have a large proponent with mental health and substance abuse, which the county isn't qualified. That's not a program that I can do. That's not a program that the commission can make up. So we have to get people that are experts in those fields to do those programs. So that's why we need this, so we can utilize them and they can have the same audit responsibilities and things like that we have to follow.
Where is this policy coming from? Did we write it, or is it a copy from a state handbook or something?
It is a copy from a federal program.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I assume that the full county commission will vote on that at our next meeting, right?
Correct. Yes. If you all approve this, then we'll send it on to the next step, the full commission.
Okay. All right, then I move we approve it.
And I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the subrecipient monitoring policy and procedure. And I will ask for a roll call vote on it as well.
Clay Blazer,
Yes.
Angela Husky Grooms, Rich Lloyd,
Yes.
Crystal Ottinger,
Yes.
Norman Smith.
All right, that carried as well. And the next on the agenda is the hotel motel tax discussion.
Clay, I'm going to let you kind of run with that for now.
All right.
I'll come in as needed.
All right, I will tell you what I have found out specifically. Heather had contacted me last week about our hotel motel tax. That was something that had been a discussion, and I think that it was, as she stated, if we want to do that, there's a couple of reasons why we would need to consider that now. Number one, it would have to be done as a private act, and that would mean that it would need to go through the state legislature, and the deadline for that, I think, is sometime in February. So it would be something that would need to be discussed now. Also, just at this preliminary stage in the budget process, this was something that we needed to, now is a good time to talk about it instead of whenever we've got to hurry up and get things passed and we don't necessarily have a way to get it worked out. So I did. She got me with, I contacted Jeremy Faison and Steve Sutherland, and I, again, with Jeremy Faison via text message, and he told me that that was something that he would be willing to carry, because I thought that would be the first thing that we would need to do, is make sure that the state legislatures would be willing to carry it, as did Steve Sutherland said that today. But now there are a couple of caveats to that. Number one, I know I had talked with the mayor, or I'd texted with her just briefly. This obviously would need to be discussed extensively in the in front of the full CLB, make sure that that's something that we want to do. The second caveat, though, and I think, Heather, this may end a little bit of what we're doing right now. Steve was not sure about the specifics, but he said that in order to increase the hotel motel tax, and again, I'll just sort of say Steve's like I am. He's sort of been doing this for a while in his particular position. He said in the old days, and that's kind of that's the verbiage that he used, these were much easier to pass. Now they are not. They are becoming much more difficult. because there has to be a limit on how long you are raising the hotel motel tax, and it has to be for a specific purpose. Now, initially, and I will have to say, maybe that is something that we would want if we want to move forward. We would want the county attorney just to look at the verbiage and a couple of things with that. He said a specific project, so I mean, my guess would be we could say for the jail. Again, but then another point in time, he said that he thought that it also may only have to deal with projects dealing with tourism. So it can only be for a short period of time, is my understanding. It's not like we can just raise it now for forever. And then all of those funds would have to go for a specific purpose. Now, again, Heather, I don't know if any of that is new information for you. That is just what he told me. And I would think that if we want to move forward, I think that's definitely something that we need to get the county attorney to look at, as well as talk about some of the other merits. But and I can answer what few questions that I know.
Clay, what's a short period of time?
Oh, I'm thinking even like 10 or 15 years. I just think that it has to be limited period of time.
Okay.
It has to be an end.
Yes, there has to be an
Okay.
end to that. Is that what you understood, Heather?
Yeah. Well, I'll have to get with Melissa a little bit more on that.
Okay.
What I included in the email that you all got is an example that she actually helped me draw up. Melissa did, because she said the rules were changing in January for the hotel motel taxes. Well, not rules, laws, due to Airbnbs and things like that. So I'll get back with her before the CLB meeting and make sure we do that properly.
Now that's what, and again, that's what Steve had made mention of. I don't think that it was an issue that he couldn't, that he wasn't willing to do that. I mean, I think he just said it's a lot more stringent now than it would have been back in the old days. So I think that that was something that he would have to look at. And again, too, I mean, I did I did voice that I was only contacting him preliminarily. I mean, we're not saying that the commission is for it. I mean, I know that there would be several aspects of this that we would have to discuss. I just know even before, whenever it was brought up, we had a couple people who had some concerns over that, namely cabins. You know, there were some concerns over cabins and things. So, I mean, I know that there are some things that are there. And the mayor, I definitely took what, excuse me, those concerns that you had as well, and kind of shared him. I just was wanting to make sure that both he and Jeremy would be willing to pick that up and carry that for us. Now, the Senator Sutherland also did say that that would have to go through maybe the local government affairs committee in Nashville, and he's not a member of that committee. And he said that for some of his colleagues, that has been more difficult to get through recently. I don't know, enough about how that works, other than to say, I think that he was just saying there could be some roadblocks with this that would not have been, generally, I think in previously, I would say even 10 years ago, carrying private acts through the state legislature was a lot easier. Once, if you had, the people from the districts themselves, those private acts were very easy to get passed. I'm thinking one of the things he's saying is that is just not the case right now.
I got
And
you.
again, I don't want to misquote him either. So I'm not, I'm not saying that no, he just simply said there were some concerns, not that he had issue with it or was supporting it one way or the other.
Yeah. I think the only thing, when it has been brought up, there's been some local concerns, like you said, from cabins and campgrounds and things like that. And I think that falls back on having a competitive advantage over surrounding counties, because it keeps their rates lower. So the only thing I would ask is that if this is going to be discussed in the upcoming commission meetings, that we don't do just Zoom, that we do in person. That would allow them an opportunity to be part of this process.
No, I would agree.
For newbies like me, what are we changing? Are we going from no hotel motel tax to an addition local tax, or are we changing something?
No, we're increasing our hotel motel tax from, I think it's current. I don't have it right in front of me.
I think it's 3 right now, and you want to increase it to 5 according to this. I got from you all.
We're just increasing it from 3 to 5. I think you're right, Mayor. I think it's 3. I don't have what we currently have right in front of me, but increasing it to 5.
Well,
Thank
now,
you.
Mayor, I know where you're coming from, and I do know, and I definitely agree with you. So, I mean, do not look with that. I guess the one question that I do have is, I want to say there was a February date that it had to be discussed, and I guess here's part of what I'm thinking. And I don't know, and I don't know, because I mean, I personally, I think some of those caveats, in particular, if it specifically has to be earmarked for a specific tourist project. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that we don't have that, but I think that that would kind of limit what we were going to be able to use it for. I mean, now if it's one of those things, I think where we can earmark it specifically for that, like let's just, and I'm just going to use jail, just because like we know that that's a need that is in the short term. I agree that they need to be there, but I also know that, I mean, we're going to have a Zoom meeting this month. Just, I mean, that, and it would not, do you see what I'm saying? So, I mean, it becomes an issue of putting off another year, which again, I'm not necessarily opposed to. But I'm just simply saying, I do know that these are needs that we're going to have to need to be worked on sooner rather than later. And I mean, even though we're talking about a budgetary item to be thinking about for this year, I guess, does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I know where your concerns are, and I guess if we want to hold off on that, I'm perfectly okay with it. I'm just saying, one thing I'm wondering is, could we potentially, now this is just an idea, could we potentially move forward with it, and we could always pull back. Although I know, but I also know, till we can have an in-person meeting, because I don't think this is going to get passed before April or May. But now again, I don't know how that works either. And you would be more familiar with that process. You just tell me what you're more familiar with. If you
Who says what's the February deadline?
Now that was the deadline that Jeremy told me, that all new bills had to be in there.
Okay.
How that for this session. And I want to
But
say,
but don't you have to have it, don't you? Yeah, well, you'd have to vote on it twice. So we'd either have to, is it too late to make January's meeting both Zoom and in person?
It is not. I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't have. I mean, and of course, you were on Zoom last month. I mean, I wouldn't have had that meeting in person had it not been for some of the issue for the single issue of going. I mean, with the appointment of a new county clerk. I mean, I would have done that already, because I know you and I talked about doing that even with Zoom. I mean, I think we can do either or. Now, I will tell you, my experience was last month, there was nobody there but us. And now let me take that. And the press. Marty was there, Ray was there, and I think Matt Winter was there. And that was it. I mean, it was just, there was not a soul outside of that whole business. So, I mean, I still feel like I would not have had that meeting in person had we not had that one particular issue. And the governor did only the night before, issue his whatever. I feel like that we should follow his guidelines until February. So with that being said, I mean, I think we could, but I just think that it would be best not to, if you know kind of what I'm.
But do we want to?
If that's.
If we don't want to rush this, doesn't they meet again in the fall, don't they?
The state legislature. I mean, you can always put it in years. I mean, it would
you
have
could
to
put
be
it off till
considered.
next spring. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's. I think maybe that when we back our in-person meeting, maybe that's the direction that we need to head. Only because, like, and I agree, Heather. I thought now was a great time to, since we are in this budget process, now would be a good time to do that. But with there being some concerns and reservations, then you just that may be just something we have to but maybe just keep that on the budget agenda, or just somewhere in there, so that we don't forget about it once we can get back to somewhat more normal. Because I agree with you, Mayor. I mean, we do need to have those key players there who are able to talk about it and listen.
And then it may be a moot point. They may have moved on and realized that that's not an issue. I'd also like to know, does it have to be a tourism project, or could it go, because every year we have concerns that we only give tourism $25,000 to market our county. Could it be a marketing project where we give that money, because right now our hotel motel tax is 3%, and we get about $300,000. So you basically say with adding 2%, if that doesn't cause any issues and cause people to stay in Gatlinburg more and not here because of that increase in the
Right.
tax, I don't know if that would, I don't know. But you could say potentially $200,000. Of course, if COVID's still there, it may be less than that because nobody's going anywhere, except for Gatlinburg, because I saw some videos on Facebook and it was packed. Yeah, I'm not going there. But if that's the case, can it be a marketing project, and we put that money toward marketing?
Well,
If it
the other
goes,
that I had even thought about two other projects. I mean, and again, maybe that's something that we would want to, even before we move on, we may even want to talk to tourism. I mean, and and see what they, or the partnership, see what they want. But I do know that there are some desperate, definite needs up on the river, meaning in terms of like paving. I mean, there's just a lot. Like we could use infinite amounts of money up there for as much money as it's bringing in, and really. And I know you've been there. I mean, I have been there. It's amazing what they're able to do with kind of what little limited infrastructure that they have. I mean, I think there would be some things that we could go for up there on the river for sure. And then also, I know with the new grant, I mean, you could also piggyback on that, whatever it doesn't cover for the bike trails with the ARC, the big grant that we got. What I mean, I'm thinking both of those are projects. So I think we've definitely got some touristic projects. I think the one thing that I will say that I'm seeing about it right now is with the exception of what's going on up on the river, which I think you can kind of argue, but I mean those are sort of things that we hadn't planned to do anyway because we didn't have any money. So I mean, so like to that it doesn't become as immediate as it would be. And I don't know. I know anytime you get money, it does take some of the pressure off somewhere else in the budget, but I don't really know how much pressure that this would take off. For example, like when we're looking at building a jail, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, to take that money off of there, that's not money that we have budgeted to spend now anyway. So, if
Yeah,
I'm making any sense.
I mean, it's a new revenue stream. It's not a strong new revenue stream. Like the mayor said, we only get approximately 300,000 now. So 2% is not going to bring in that much more, but it might be able to give us something we can do to help the community.
Yeah.
but
No,
now when they put bed and breakfasts in it, and those start having to pay that occupancy tax, and we may have to look at that, changing that, because I think they don't call it hotel motel tax anymore, but they call it occupancy tax now, I think. So we might have to revise this if it goes past this point. But when we start getting the occupancy tax from bed and breakfasts and those Airbnbs, or those Airbnbs, and what are those home rental, you like rent a room or you rent a house. Right now I don't think we're reaching our capacity, and they're filing properly or as they should. So we may have a potential for even more revenue once the state passes this and gets those included in that, the ones that have to pay that occupancy tax.
Yeah, and from my understanding, in January, a lot of that, or as of the first of the year, a lot of that has changed, especially for Airbnbs. So,
I
from
think it's just
Melissa,
something.
that's what Melissa had told me.
I think that's just something we need to put on the radar. And I mean, and again, maybe that's another conversation too, where we can come in with that being that way and where we are at. I mean, and looking at it and seeing what tourism, what kinds of, with that new revenue stream, what are some specific needs that they have.
And while we're thinking about things and projects, they're looking at that, a feasibility study of like a standalone septic in Cosby. Well, if they get that has a potential of opening up more campground type things, and maybe some type of cabin rentals there or whatever. I don't know what the future might look like up in that area if they get that potential. But if there needed to be a grant match to get that could be a project, but I don't think it's far enough along. Last I checked, I'm not exactly sure where that was. I know they felt pretty comfortable of having a place to put it if it all went through, but I'm not sure where it's at right now. But that's something else that, could be considered a project, is getting that up there.
Okay. Well, I think probably we need to just, I think there's just too many unknowns and too many things to discuss it now. However, I do think that that's something that we need to, and Heather, I hesitate to put it this way, but maybe as soon as the budget's over and we get this one passed, maybe that's what we need to look at for the next year. And that will give us a little bit of time to, like I said, maybe reach out to tourism, see what other, what that looks like and kind of find out some more information.
All right, that sounds good. I'll put it on my calendar for around August.
Okay. All right. That sounds great.
Does that sound comfortable to you, Dr. Lloyd?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah. Yes.
All right.
All right. Any more discussion on hotel motel tax? All right. There was no transfers and amendments. Is that still correct?
Mhm.
Okay. We have no transfers and amendments at this time. So the next on the agenda is adjournment.
Very good. I move we adjourn.
I second that, Dr. Lloyd.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you all.
Hey, everybody stay safe. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. You too. We'll see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, y'all.